Hey everybody! Now a lot of the lore surrounding the Naruto verse revolves around conflicts that took place off screen, and the legends that were created due to these conflicts, most of which had occurred during the many ninja wars that took place. The first Great Ninja War, the second Great Ninja War, and the third Great Ninja War. Now I already made a video going in depth about all the events that occurred during the fourth Great Ninja War, so in today's video, I decided to tackle the events that comprise the first three wars. I'll also do my best to give a rough estimate of the time frame and span of each war, which due to how vague the story gets when talking about those wars, won't be that easy or clear to define. I'll still give it my best shot though. Now, if you're new to this channel, I ask that you subscribe and drop a like, and other than that, let's just jump straight to it. Okay, so most people don't realize this, but the author Masashi Kishimoto drew inspiration from the First and Second World War when crafting the idea of the Ninja Wars. Starting with the First Great Shinobi War, which began a few years after the formation of the Five Great Nations. Now it's never explicitly stated what started the conflict. All we know is that tensions between the newly formed villages was high. One example of this is the confrontation between the future would-be second and third Tsuchikage and Madara Uchiha. Madara, wearing the leaf headband, indicates that this was prior to his defection, and he tries to get the stone to submit to the leaf. Now it's unclear to what extent Madara was responsible for this war, or whether he did the same thing to other villages. I would assume that he just added fuel to the ongoing tensions, and eventually, all the hostilities between the five great nations would lead to the First Ninja War, presumably shortly after the first Hokage and Madara Uchiha's titanic clash took place. And a few years into the war, prior to the first Hokage's death, he would hold the first Five Kage Summit and propose the distribution of the tailed beasts, in an attempt to foster peace and put an end to the war. Now the outcome of the meeting is unclear. I would assume that it didn't go the way Hashirama had hoped, and since the first Kazekage had outraged the other Kage, the war was still ongoing. We know that shortly after, an assassin would be sent after the Hokage. He'd obviously fail. And sometime down the line, the second Tsuchikage and second Mizukage, Mu and Gengetsu, would face each other, and it would end with a mutual kill. This means that both the stone and the mist lost its first two generations of Kage. And since Mu assumes that the second Hokage was the one to revive them in the fourth war, this would imply that Tobirama was still alive when the encounter took place. Sometime down the line though, the second Hokage would attempt to have a peace summit with the second Raikage, which would indicate that Hashirama had perished due to illness by that point. This encounter would however not go the way the Leaf or the Cloud had hoped, and they would get ambushed by the Gold and Silver brothers, and the Hokage would be left on the brink of death. It's unclear what the fate of A the Second was, but the assault led to Ginkaku and Kinkaku's notoriety as the worst criminals of the Hidden Cloud. The last event we know that took place during the First War was when the Ginkaku unit targeted the second Hokage's platoon. All we know about the Ginkaku unit was that it consisted of 20 skilled ninja of the Cloud. Whether they were acting on orders from the Raikage, or whether Ginkaku himself was even part of that squad is unknown. All we know is that Tobirama sacrificed himself in order for his squad to escape, and shortly after this incident, the First Ninja War would come to an end and an armistice agreement would be signed when the great nations were exhausted, just like World War I, a war that took out the first two generations of Kage from each village. And just like how World War II started around 20 years after the First War, the Second Great Shinobi War would begin when hostilities broke out between the five great nations, primarily the Leaf, Sand, and the Stone. The Second Ninja War primarily took place within small proxy nations like the Hidden Rain, that were sandwiched between the five great nations. The Second War was big for the Leaf, and it's the war in which Konoha legends forged a name for themselves, like the legendary Sannin and the White Fang. This is also the war in which the White Fang would kill Sasori's parents. The biggest legend to come out of this war, however, is Tsunade. She would go on to advocate for a new rule to have a medic ninja within every squad, which would revolutionize the Leafs' warfare and would eventually lead to them winning the war. She would also always find a counter to Chiyo's poisons, though it wasn't all wins for Tsunade. This is the same war in which she would lose her younger brother, Nawaki, and her lover, Dan Kato. She would also go on to face Hanzo alongside her teammates Jiraiya and Orochimaru, where they would earn the name the Sannin, the Legendary Three. Despite Hanzo fighting for the Rain still faced the most devastation from the war, and all the warfare and civilian casualties would in turn lead to the refugees and orphans that comprised the Hidden Rain's population. It's unclear what the fate of the Hidden Sand and the Hidden Stone was, but the Leaf emerged victorious. Part of the reason Nagato was so bitter against the Leaf, understandably so. We finally reached the last conflict, the Third Great Ninja War, presumably taking place around 10 to 12 years after the Second Ninja War, since that's how much older Nagato has gotten. A conflict in which everyone was involved. This is the war in which Sasori would earn his title, Sasori of the Red Sand, due to how bloody the terrain would become after his battles. Other legends that made their name during this war were Ao the Byakugan Killer, Han the Five Tails Jinchuriki, Wicked-Eyed Fugaku, and Kakashi the Copy Ninja. Sasori would soon defect from the sand, and a few years down the line, he would target and abduct the third Kazekage. No one in the sand would know about this, of course. The Hidden Sand elders state that the sand was left in a vulnerable state during the Third Ninja War due to their forces being occupied in searching for the Kazekage, and due to the ongoing war, the sand would be forced to select the fourth Kazekage. The Kazekage would not be the only third generation Kage to perish though. This is the same war in which the third Raikage would take on 10,000 shinobi on his own and fight them off to allow his team time to escape. He would battle for 3 days straight until he finally caved in. The Cloud would also send the future would-be 4th Raikage, A, backed by the Jinchuriki of the Eight Tails Killer B, to face the Yellow Flash of the Leaf in a brief skirmish. Speaking of, let's talk about the man of the hour, and the one that was widely regarded as the hero of the Third War, the future 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze. The two biggest assailants of this war were the Hidden Leaf and the Hidden Stone, who were battling non-stop. There was even a time when the Stone sent both their Jinchuriki to fight the Leaf Ninja. Of course though, the most famous battle was the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. The Stone sent more than 1,000 troops to invade the Hidden Grass Village, which was on the border with the Land of Fire. The only way to sustain such a large force was due to having an effective supply system through the Kanabi Bridge. Hence, Team Minato was sent to disrupt this supply system by having the Yellow Flash Minato face the enemy head-on, while his students, Kakashi, Rin, and Obito, destroy the bridge. Now, as we already know, they did eventually succeed in destroying the Kanabi Bridge, but of course that came at the cost of Obito, who was presumably left for dead. That is until Madara found what remained of the boy and tried to glue him back together with the assistance of all the Zetsu he had around. A couple months down the line, and once Obito managed to gain some mobility back, Madara orchestrates a plan to manipulate Obito into joining his cause. The Mist kidnaps Rin and seals the Three Tails inside her, set up so that when she returns to Konoha, the Three Tails would be released and rampage through the Leaf. Rin, however, had an eerie feeling and kills herself on Kakashi's Chidori, which would in turn awaken both Kakashi and Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan, and Obito would join Madara's cause after massacring the Mist Ninja. Madara would also teach Obito about the Infinite Tsukuyomi and everything else he'd need to know. Back to Amegakure, and Danzo manipulates Hanzo into thinking that Yahiko's Akatsuki is a nuisance. Hanzo views them as a threat to his seat of power. And alongside members of the Foundation, Hanzo and Danzo ambush Yahiko and Nagato, holding Conan hostage. After Yahiko takes his own life to not burden Nagato, Nagato goes on a rampage and slaughters the entirety of Hanzo's platoon, and Hanzo makes a quick getaway. This would lead the Hidden Rain into civil war, and Obito and Nagato would join forces, and create the Akatsuki we know today. The war goes overwhelmingly well for the Leaf, but the third Hokage faces heavy scrutiny due to accepting an unprecedented offer from the Stone and not seeking reparations. This would lead him to stepping down, and the hero of the war, the Yellow Flash, would be named the fourth Hokage. And that's it for the events that occurred in the first three Shinobi Wars. The events of the third war would have a domino effect that would kickstart the events of the series, such as the creation of the Akatsuki, the Nine Tails attack which would lead to Naruto becoming its Jinchuriki, and would cast blame on the Uchiha clan, eventually leading to the Uchiha clan's demise. The hostilities between the villages would remain as well, such as Chiyo's grudge against the White Fang and Tsunade. The third Tsuchikage Onoki would become a bitter old man, the Raikage would lock B up after losing his father, the Mist would face one of its darkest eras yet, and Obito and Zetsu would carry out Madara's plans in secrecy. The rich history has always been one of my favorite aspects of the Naruto series, so I hope you enjoyed today's history lesson. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and let me know what you think of all of this. Peace.